Dear friends, glad to meet everybody on Feygin Live again. It is 2 past 10 on Saturday, 21st of May, and we're discussing day 87 with Olexiy Arestovych again. Glad to see you, likewise. We missed one day yesterday, circumstances, so today we'll try to compensate for that and go over the missing yesterday's 86th day as well. Let's go over Severodonetsk. We're showing the same map from Institute of War, United States. It's rather detailed for our purposes, and situation, as we understand, is rather critical. In 3 places it is turning critical not to our favor. In 2 places it turns critical in our favor. So, as they like to say these days, everything is not so simple. So behind Seversky Donetsk there is a town called Volchansk, next to the border with Russian Federation. And supplies going to the group near Izum go through that route, and there are a lot of things happening there, weird things that disrupt these supplies. Russian army may start having very specific logistics-related problems. Not necessarily with ground troops, but artillery has a reach of that area, so it is painful for the Russian army. Also, if you look at Izum group, that is trying to advance to Slaviansk and Kramatorsk, they actually took a pause. They're trying to regroup. The most difficult situation is near Popasnaya and Bakhmutova, that area, and a bit to the west from there. Russian forces were thrown there in the last couple of days, not too big. By the initial measurement when the war started, they're nothing, but right now, with both armies being a bit tired, and these forces are being thrown to capture one small village, that is noticeable and rather painful. So, the Bakhmut direction is probably more critical than Severodonetsk. Yeah, they're going for the further out ring. That's not pleasant. And they're still trying to creep in that area. They're also to the north of Avdiivka, another area of concern. And another good thing is that we stopped Russian advancement near Gulay-Pole. There are some positional fighting and maneuvering going on, but we can conclusively say that there is no advancement there. All of their forces are near Popasna now. All of the efforts of Russians are concentrated toward Bakhmut from Popasna. It appears, looking to this map, that they're moving rather far from Popasna. Is there an attempt for Ukraine forces to counterattack or attack and reach near Stakhanov? If we had a concrete direction, a concrete set of targets there, and we had the capability to do that, we would be doing it. So right now, it's a bit critical with reserves in that area. And situations change pretty fast. So during the war, nobody announces things about reserves unless your army is really beaten up and down and out. When not even the housemaid, but even her cat realizes what's happening. So during the war fighting, when the situation is hanging in balance, we're not discussing these nuances. If I also was not in the official position, I could probably talk a bit more about these situations, but right now I'm limited. I understand, but I gotta ask you questions that other people ask, and if I'll be avoiding asking, there'll be concerns. No, I like your questions, it's just I'm somewhat limited with answers. Whatever we can, we say. Whatever we cannot, we tell we cannot. We have 300,000 people watching us live, and if I omit some of their questions, they'll cuss me right there in chat. And some people are joking that it's not real me because we are for 6 minutes live, and I have not yet told anyone to subscribe to my channel or to your channel. So please subscribe. Also, if you're watching in English, Privateer Station, please subscribe to that one. And according to our data, at least 50% of you do not subscribe. So if you are watching this, do not forget to click that button. And click like. That helps to promote. Alright, let's go further. What is going on down south? Just a clear positional fight in the south. If we look at Kherson district region, the right shore, they tried moving to a couple locations and we countered them. And we've been destroying their munitions and supplies for 2 weeks very methodically, so now they're out of fumes on that direction. So their situation is Russians already cannot advance and we cannot do any offensive yet. So it's really artillery duels, somewhat long-range artillery duels on that front. So, you know the impression that we're getting looking at this map? It appears that Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation on the verge of transfer to that positional fighting and maybe switching to defense mode. They're really trying to capture that piece from roughly Popasna to Belogorovka or Liman, maybe to Slavyansk or Bakhmut, and try to straighten that line, call it somewhat administrative border of Lugansk region, and then you can send Berlusconi from Italy to try to talk reason into everybody and say, well, stop fighting, let's start negotiating. Do you think that expedited attempt to grab a piece of Lugansk region is the goal that they want to fulfill by any means necessary, or whatever they have left? We talked about that. We can say a bit wider. So, Kremlin warfighting is usually military, political, and informational. So, military, yeah, that is the goal too. Now they will write Mariupol to their victory, and they may include that little piece to call Lugansk and Donetsk regions concluded. And perhaps if they encircle more troops, they can either finish and kill them brutally, or maybe release peacefully some of them. which kind of seems important for them at the moment because of the amount of losses and the defeats they suffered. They also are working with Europe with their messengers in Italy, in some other countries where the main refrain will we understand the war is long, that Putin will not leave it smoldering, that in order to avoid the crisis and further casualties, let's convince Kiev to go for territorial losses. We understand, though, that Kiev management and Kiev government and president already stated that the minimum negotiation we can talk about is the borders by the 23rd of February. And if there'll be no success in the political sphere, negotiations will use military options to return borders back to the original. And our president is also prepared by our intel support, by our partners and other data, so he's relying on the facts and options that are possible. In regards to Russian army, they do understand that in a month, probably two, Ukraine gets to the peak of their war-fighting capability. We are fine in terms of mobilization. We have a lot of soldiers and officers willing to fight, and now we're also adding armor. So at least my feeling is that looking at the data say that we do have enough infantry or all kinds of infantry. So, in my understanding, Russian leadership are not sure or have the data that they will not be, they're running a chance of not being mobilized enough on time when Ukraine army will be battle ready. So their task is to try to pull as much as they can the rearmament and reorganization of the Ukrainian army to the right. To the right on the timeline, and also to possibly slow resupply of heavy armor and other equipment that are going through Europe, which are going, yeah, they are going. So some things are fast, some things are slow. Some countries cannot supply 9 howitzers for the 3rd month already, while Americans supplied 90 in a couple of weeks. But Russian propaganda is touting the line that we're not fighting with Ukraine, we're fighting with a coalition of the Western countries. So everything is not so simple. So they're leading to selling Russian society small, modest results of the war. Mariupol and getting to the borders of Lugansk and Donetsk regions and sell it as the victory. Because the situation is becoming more and more complex in their descriptions, and through the way they describe it, they more and more bring the fact that 2 sides are not equal, that Ukrainian army is almost 1 million and Russian army by 250,000 is achieving goals. So that's where we can see the joining point for military, political and information fighting. So they're hoping to get to the borders of Lugansk and Donetsk regions and claim it as the success. Today was Shoigu's birthday, Russian Minister of Defense. I did another thing during the ceremony in Russia. There was a phrase where they actually announced the goals of the operation, that Russian army is fulfilling all goals and tasks in relation to freeing the peoples of Lugansk and Donetsk regions. So that's what they're selling to their populace back in Russia, that they succeeded in getting the territories of Lugansk and Donetsk back, and were successful there. But in regards to the awful behavior of Ukraine in general, we're negotiating with the West, and it is difficult negotiations, but we're waging them. And we're also offering ways to transport grains and food through the Black Sea, and the only regime that is protesting our attempt to relieve food shortage in the world is the nasty regime of Zelensky. So Ukrainian government is also reacting to that line. And Zelensky already said that our task is to free the whole territory of Ukraine. We'll use military where we can, political where we can. So this puts goals of two countries in counterposition. And President was pretty hard, stating that will not accept the Russian desire to grab more territory, because Russia already violated their treaties twice with Ukraine. So Russia is really following the main thing, to pause the resupply of Ukraine, to calm down or throw back Ukraine a bit, and win some time for themselves. And also make Ukraine guilty and try to bring on the situation where they, together with the West, are convincing Ukraine, the crazy Ukraine, to sit down at negotiations table, that Russia is working with the West to calm down the crazies. That reminds me when I was in the military service, and back in 2014, that was the kind of main push the same way. This time, though, we're in union with Brits and Americans, which gives a bit more decisive advantage. And we already heard, especially Britons are stating that the goals that you cannot really achieve if you follow the follies of the Italian moves. However, Americans got some of these softer tones that we need to start talking to Russia, after the conversation with Gerasimov and Milley, that one? Yeah. And the article in New York Times, that's another attempt to soften it, that it's not real to capture things that Russia took starting on the 24th of February. So that creates conditional opportunities for dialogue with Russia, because you can fight for as long as you want, but negotiations might flow alongside, and at some point they may actually intersect with the military action, and main action may switch to the negotiation part. It's good also to have negotiations prepared in advance, so when the countries meet, everything is prepared and they're not duking it out there, they're pretty much ready to sign things. So that reminds of even back in the Second World War, there were negotiations. Germany negotiated with Stalin, and Stalin tried to give up some lands so Germany stops their attack. And they were negotiations with the West, of course, not just in 1945, but back in 1943. And Americans created the dialogue throwing the subjects that really concern Russian Federation, for example, supply of Patriot missiles and HIMARS reactive artillery systems that hits further and more accurately than Ukrainian Alha. So it will give big issues to Russia if we get it. So is Patriot decided subject? Our president said that there'll be another conversation at the end of the month, and that are the ones that they were going to give us through Rammstein about a month ago, so it's somewhat delaying. So do Patriots solve the matter of Russian aviation? Do they provide the cover of the sky? No single weapon can do that, Mark. It does reinforce our system, yes, but it's always a complex. So Russia usually takes about 20-50 flights a day, and not all of them are military, some of them are reconnaissance, and they're not really sneaking further than 20 miles near the line of active military contact. So a couple hundred kilos warhead on the new systems that states could have supplied us, that would have had a range of about 300 miles. So Russia was seriously afraid of that one. There was an interesting notice. And somebody leaked that as a conversation point from the American side, not the official, but someone near, like a journalist, take an interview, or one of like a secondary figures, said that they're afraid that Ukraine will be using these missiles to do the attacks in Federation. So, that is the political difficulty that we are currently facing. At the same time, I already have to say that our current government will not go for Minsk III agreements, where we would give up more territory and hope that Russia would not attack us anymore. And that is our government does not want to agree to any of these, and we are fending off the attempts of Russian Federation to create some sort of a smoke and mirror situation where Ukrainian government would concede a lot and just take some bribes or something to stop the conflict. And so the discord on the Ukrainian side. So our government is strong and standing against it. So Russia is now saying, speaking of the ocean, of the Black Sea, Russia said that if you lift some sanctions, we can maybe let Ukrainian ships go from Ukraine and start bringing food. At the same time, there was another conversation or counter to that, was a hope that Ukraine will get some anti-ship missiles from United States that could deblocate the whole area and basically send Russian ships to hell with their negotiations. And also provide an opportunity for Ukraine to supply grain and other food items to countries of Africa and other buyers that are really starting to feel the deficit. They gauge the possibility to transport things by train out of Ukraine, but no, that doesn't resolve anything. So ultimately, one needs to deblocade Ukrainian ports to let them trade freely with the world.
По поводу динамики могу сказать следующее. Мы же опирались не на слова Антона Геращенко, при всем моем уважении, а мы опирались на слова президента Соединенных Штатов Байдена, который сказал, что это большая проблема, и ее надо решать.
So, speaking of dynamics in the Black Sea,
С тех пор стороны сделали ряд заявлений, в том
we
числе было заявление представителя.
do not follow the statement of Gerashenko. We're trying to follow the statement of our
НАТО может в Черном море использовать свои силы сама, как она того пожелает. Как бы НАТО как бы и нет, но
allies, like President of the United States, who said that Ukraine should deblocade their routes and have freedom to ship things around. And also, NATO made an announcement that each NATO country can use their own naval powers to help deblocade the Black Sea.
Это заявки сторон. Вот они заявили в партии, заявили позиции. Дальше она будет.
So this is the initial positions. That's what our allies are saying. We'll use military force to deblocade that area, and Russia is saying that we already almost agreed with the West. Ukraine is just throwing sticks in the wheel and trying to derail the negotiations.
Они говорят о том, что для блокады есть насущная необходимость. Насущная. Соответственно, есть позиция у Всемирной организации.
And yet, after the 2 or 3 days of that grandstanding, NATO officials are still saying that debloccation of the Ukrainian ports is still a priority, and they're leaning towards the military solution. So, in general, it seems to be a good point because 85 days, Russia was not negotiating with the West. Russia had some negotiations with Ukraine, but the West was taking a pause and break from that. This is normal. So finally, the allies are also getting to the table. And in this regard, this war is pretty normal war, in parentheses, as it matches any other conflict that happened on this planet when sides were negotiating on one level, discussing things on the other, and then fighting on the third. So that's somewhat normal. What I can say, our strong position is that our government will not forfeit our territories or rights. But there are powers in Europe, Italy, France, some Germany, Hungary, who are trying to push in a different direction.
То заодно и решили поговорить обо всем остальном. Ну, плюс прогнозы. Западные политики строят на основе прогнозов свои политические...
So it kind of stirred the pot, you know, if situation on the front goes one way or the other way, that changes political situation in Europe long term. So they started figuring, and Turkey voiced the concerns about Finland and Sweden joining NATO. So it appears that it may be a good time to talk and discuss things. Good window right now, especially in relation to most of the front, that positions are going into the long-term warfare, positional fighting, that it's a good opportunity for negotiations for both sides, because even though it may feel bad for the soldiers in the front, strategically not many things are happening, so it's a relatively good moment for negotiating. And again, solution for the Black Sea doesn't mean sinking the whole remnants of Russian fleet there. It can be just using the efforts of Turkey, Bulgaria, and American and British ships to clear the routes of ocean mines and also provide free passage zones or provide some umbrella for the passage of the trade vessels. We have 433,000 people watching us live. We are about 28, almost 30 minutes live. Remind those who just joined us, do not forget to subscribe to our channel, Feygin Live and Olexiy Arestovych. And if you're watching that in English, subscribe to the Privateer station. Do not forget to leave your like, click that like button, and perhaps share that link with those people who might appreciate or who need to see that.
Если нет такой возможности, посылайте по мессенджерам, ну и используйте какие-то другие альтернативные способы, так чтобы и другие зрители узнают, что передача...
Yeah, don't forget to share that with other social media that you may have.
Колокольчиком не приходит уведомления, и все засыпано вопросами, сегодня будет Арестович или нет. Так что это еще и способ для того, чтобы контролировать время и...
That helps us. Your pressure, peer pressure helps us to keep doing this.
Ну хорошо, вот смотри, последняя ситуация...
Okay, last situation about Finland and Sweden joining NATO. There is a bit of a hustle happening behind the scenes and visibly. So Turkey is sounding concerns that there are activists from their Kurdish, whom they call terrorists in their country, that their representatives and people are, and organizations are in Finland and Sweden.
Ну, является фактором, не способствующим урегулированию ситуации.
And also another official stated that the joining of Sweden and Finland, NATO at the moment during the war of Ukraine, does not promote peace and peaceful solutions in Europe if more countries are joining NATO during that time. So what do you think? In your opinion, does it make situation worse? Does it make Moscow more concerned? Not the Turkish point of view, we understand what Turkey wants, but does it have a potential to disrupt the situation on the border? I can quote Timothy Snyder here. Who said that the biggest mistake would be to over-bribe or beg for peace of Mr. Putin, because this war reveals that he is a ruthless character. And bribing and giving gifts and concessions doesn't really solve the situation, the problem in its core. It basically gives him additional 3 to 4 years to accumulate more troops and more armor and more power to continue solving his situations in the military way. And this time it's on the blood of Ukrainians. We don't want that. We need to kick them back so hard that in the nearest historic perspective they would have no capability of coming and attacking us again. So Finland and Sweden joining NATO are more likely to help the situation, right? Yeah, I suppose so. They would drag at least or distract at least some of the troops. And they're coming without the preparations and all that stuff. Yeah, correct. They're coming in express mode, so if anything, that makes NATO stronger, and it also dispels the necessity of preparation and all that. It's a fake requirement. And if Russian troops will be at diminished capacity after this conflict, having Finland and Sweden on the borders, on the ocean and sea borders as well, will only make Russia forces to dispel more on the border and kind of not be able to concentrate on one specific point for a long time.
Вот складывается ли такое же впечатление, есть ли такая информация в ВСУ, попадают ли они в плен, что с ними происходит, и как сделать...
So, any news about
Да, и что происходит, что они говорят?
Судьба их трагична, погибнет очень много людей. Одна из крайних цифр, которых я... Потому что как с Москвы для...
Any news about those people in the occupied territories in DNR and LNR? what's happening to those people? Are they all being, we heard that there is like mass recruitment, mass conscription happening there. Yeah, it's a sad destiny. They basically grab them, give them 1 or 2 day training.
Мобилизованных. Ни хреновенько. Скажи
Это
мне,
те, подожди, это те, кого сумели забрать с поля боя. Далеко ж не всех забирают еще. Там сама вроде Гур сказал еще.
One of the sources said that 17,000 of those people dead and 4,000 or 5,000 are wounded. And to address that disparity, that usually it's the other way around, is because nobody is really providing them military help or medical help. Many of them are dying of things that should not have killed them. They're just throwing them in the grinder and doesn't give a rat's ass about their surviving. They're basically throwing Ukrainians onto Ukrainians and forcing them to fight us and putting their troops behind them. And now they're announced that they're doing a second conscription wave, and now they expanded the age, so it's between 16 and 60, and they also started to use women as well for additional positions where they can be utilized. So that's quite a tragedy. And they cannot run because they're in a really bad situation. They cannot. Why cannot they run? Well, they're being executed at a spot. Oh, you mean like there are detachments behind them that shoot in their backs when they try to flee the action? Yeah, we got a ton of confirmations. There are some Russian troops behind them that are just destroying everybody who doesn't want to fight. So what do they do? Well, I would say hide, maneuver and hide. Is it probably hard to leave their territory? It is not easy, but there are ways to leave for Russia. And if we're not talking about masses, you can run to Russia. It's better than being conscripted and sent to the grinder to the war in Ukraine. Out of Russia, you can wait time there for a while there and then come back to your country or go to Ukraine. But that'll at least save their lives. So, firstly, they are in these fake republics. They got these whatever little sheets of papers telling them that they are the citizens of that DNR and LNR. Secondary, many of them got the passport of Russian Federation, so they technically could live. But they're also Russia citizens who are just Russian citizens who never got the DNR passport or Ukrainian passport before. Yeah, no, they don't give a crap. They collect everybody. Any man between 16 and 60 will likely be conscripted. So that's very interesting. That's unusual. And surrender? Yeah, we discussed that. It's difficult. It's not easy. You technically cannot. You technically cannot do that during the big fighting happening on the field as a group. And another thing, it's about the quality of people. Those people who are forced to serve, who could not flee, who could not figure any other way, there's a quality of people. They will not be able to surrender en masse. They're beaten up and shoved into that situation. And they're just getting executed if they even waver and say they don't want to go to the battle today. In Russia, they're about 30-40% refusing, but they're just administrative cases. They don't really face anything. So, yeah, they don't get any insurance, they don't get any money, they're just being sent to the battle to be slaughtered. Those DNR and LNR citizens. That's what happens in this Russia acknowledged fake republics if you sadly happen to be a citizen of one. And in Kherson, they're not doing anything like that, right? In the end of April, they were doing something. There were some preparations there. They tried to count people and create some lists and maybe call for doctors to use them. But those were extreme situations we saw later. They mostly used it to try to compensate for the losses they suffered. And they really need medical support because a big part of those who die, they usually die on the first mile getting from the battlefield to the medical support area. So if they could find somebody who can help stabilize the wounded, they can diminish the losses. So that was the effort. So we've been for about 41 minutes live, about 450,000 people watching us live. It's Saturday, so a little less than usual, but in any case, we're not discussing Azovstal and defenders of Mariupol. We're waiting for that situation to return back to the public discussion area. We actually had a little bit. There was a little bit movement that we can comment that one of the Ukrainians said that before, but now we had a congressman in Russia repeating that, saying we could maybe change Medvedchuk for Azovstal warriors. And the fact that he even aired that offer, that proposition, it means that situation with Azovstal is not a fait accompli, so it's still somewhat fluid. And, you know, the Ukrainian side did say we'll exchange him for them if that comes to it. We'll see, but and yes, we did discuss the situation with the Navy. There is nothing else we can say, so I am just going through the questions in chat. All right, let's wait. Let's meet tomorrow, 10 p.m. Don't miss us. We'll be live again. We'll discuss more subjects and everything that'll change during the day. Thank you, everybody. Subscribe to Feygin Live. Subscribe to Olexiy Arestovych. And don't forget to post links to us and subscribe to Private Here Station. See you tomorrow.
Всем до завтра и пока.